New York becoming the first state to ban natural gas stoves in most new buildings, and calls for federal oversight of the common appliance are starting to gain traction. 11 attorneys general urging the Consumer Product Safety Commission to address the health and safety risks that are associated with gas stoves, saying in a letter that air pollutants from the appliance are putting children and underserved communities at risk of asthma and other respiratory illnesses. Joining us right now is the man leading the charge, D.C. Attorney General Brian Schwalb. And sir, thank you for being here today. There is a lot of confusion that's been kicked off by the charges that gas stoves are dangerous to people, and people who are now wondering what to do about things. What would you tell them?
Oh, good morning. Thank you for having me this morning. You know, this really is an important issue for public health and safety, as well as making sure consumers have good, accurate information about potential risks associated with appliances in their home. The data and science tells us that gas stoves do, in fact, emit pollutants, creating indoor air pollution that can make people sick. Here in the District of Columbia, we have more than 16,000 young people who suffer with asthma. And we know that having a gas-burning stove in the house makes kids 42% more likely to be suffering with asthma symptoms. So this is an important issue of public safety and making sure consumers have clear information so they can make informed decisions about the appliances in their home.
I mean, I've dug through the research on this and tried to figure it out, and there's a lot of back and forth debate. Most of the studies on the health effect of cooking gas have been observational, because obviously it'd be unethical to expose children intentionally to environmental risks. But most of the problems seem to be linked back to when those appliances aren't maintained properly. For instance, you could have NO2 concentration in much higher indoor settings. You could also have other carcinogens that are there if it's unburned natural gas that's not burned off because the stove's not functioning properly. They've tied things back to air conditioners, refrigerators, all kinds of other things. What do you say to that? Especially because are you calling for people to rip out their gas stoves, get rid of them?
No, absolutely not. We're not talking about ripping out gas stoves, and that's kind of the exaggerated hyperbole. We've got a process with the Consumer Product Safety Commission gathering information. And that was the letter that I and 10 other state attorneys general sent to the commission, gathering information to try to set forth a uniform standard, gathering so that we don't have misinformation or confusion in the market, and people can make informed decisions about the science. There'll be an opportunity for people to contribute their views, and the process should result in uniformity and a better sense of confidence for consumers and homeowners to know what the risks are, how they can mitigate those risks. Even if somebody's not going to take a gas stove out of their house, they may think about the next time they're renovating their kitchen or making an appliance change to making a change.
Brian, if it's really harmful to your kids, you don't just think about, well, maybe next time. Are you sure this isn't a Trojan horse? When I read it, I initially thought it was about CO2, and it just happened to coincide with an article in the Journal today, an opinion piece about the Biden administration cracking down not just on gas stoves, on lighting, on furnaces, on washing machines, on dishwashers, on air conditioners, across the board, because of CO2 emissions. And when you said that air pollutants are released, are you including CO2 as a pollutant being released or are you talking about actually harmful to children in the house at the time? What are you talking about? Adding to climate change or actual harmful to people that are living there?
We're talking about, thank you, Joe. We're talking about pollutants in the home that are harmful to children, to seniors, to those who might have respiratory vulnerability. We're talking about nitrogen dioxide and particulate materials. These are materials that have been shown to have an adverse impact on people and create asthma.
But is it in poorly maintained things? I mean, Brian, my entire life, I've never liked electric stoves. I think they take too long. And then let me ask you this. Are you okay with electric stoves if natural gas is powering the grid that you get at your utility? Is that okay with you, or do you think we shouldn't even be having natural gas power the grid for your electric stoves?
My focus at the moment is really on indoor air quality for people who live in the District of Columbia. I'm concerned about the residents of the District of Columbia, too many of whom are living in dangerous conditions for a variety of reasons. And particularly here in the District of Columbia, some of our underserved communities east of the river have disproportionate levels of asthma hospitalizations. And as you know, Joe, when a kid is sick with asthma, has to go to the hospital for asthma, huge impact on learning, huge impact on the earning of the family, where moms and dads have to take time off from work. So we want to make sure that people are safe. We also want to make sure that people have information to make informed decisions about how to keep themselves safer. It may be that
this sounds like it is a call to go ahead and rip gas stoves out. I mean, if you're telling me that this is the cause for it, I do want that out, and I think this gets back to the consumer confusion. Is this a problem where we need to take out our gas stoves or not?
And one of the good things that's going to come from this process that the Consumer Product Safety Commission will do in the course of its gathering of information and gathering insights is give some clear direction to the country about the best way to keep people safe. It's not practical, nor are we urging that people rip out their gas stoves right away.
Well,
but we are asking people
that my kid's being exposed to this.
You may want to make sure that the ventilation in your stove is well used. You want to understand that if there is going to be gas emitted in your home, that you're ventilating it so that you're reducing the risk. And I know as parents, it's important to both of you to be aware of risks so that you can take steps to protect yourselves and your family. That's important to everybody, and that's really what the CPSC process should do for everybody across the country.